morning. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning, where talk is real, truth is in the talk, and there is power in truth. And we believe that we know that the truth will set you free, and that's what we try to strive to do every day. Good morning, Melody. I love it when you tap dance.
Yes, so do I. I enjoy it very much, and I was going to say I tiptoe through to tulips too. But
careful now, there, Tiny Tim. I wanted to share first thing, and we usually have open mic on Fridays, and we were just talking that we haven't done enough encouraging you to write us. This happened to come to me, and I thought I would share this on the air. It is someone who listens to Power Talks. It says, Dear Beth Ann and Melody, your replay broadcast was great. Great signal at 6 a.m. Georgia time. I agree with your feelings on Congress, but the 2018 elections may be flooded with foreign dollars given from globalist Dems to both parties, challengers of choice. And they sent me a newspaper clip, which I won't read. It says, see the newspaper clip. But I fear liberal bloc voters who would remove our rights, our status quickly, and with help from the media. The Congress is weak. The dear platforms full of promises, Band-Aids, and sweet talk. Weak. No cures, no knowledge of the original intent of our founding fathers. I think they'd have knowledge of that. I think they just don't want what our founding fathers wanted. I'm starting to doubt my Democratic Party. Instead of fixing the core problems of currency, finance, sovereignty, national populism versus global authoritarianism, we get fluff. Fluff. And that's from a Robert out of Georgia. And I appreciate that, Robert. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And we want to encourage you to do that.
Let me give them my address.
Absolutely.
And yes, we would love to read your letters. Many of you don't have phones. Many of you don't like to call in, and that's okay. But if you'd like to write, just send it to Power Talks, P.O. Box 276, Berlin, Maryland, 21811. That's Power Talks. Or you can just put Beth and Melody, P.O. Box 276, Berlin, Maryland, 21811. So we encourage you. We want to hear from you.
And Robert happens to listen to CSC Talk Radio, and that's why he sent it to me here, which is okay, too, if you want to send them to me. And that's just simply Post Office Box 73, California, Missouri, 65018. We love getting letters, especially good letters.
Yes. And we don't want to confuse you with two addresses, so we really
just go to 276 because Melody's the boss. So stay with
Hardly. Everybody says I am, but nobody listens to me.
No, they just say you're bossy. They don't say you're the boss.
Well, that's what women are in business. We're bosses. We're bossy.
Oh, I know. I don't like my boss.
Not professional. We're bossy.
Oh, I could afford to be a little bit more bossy. That one employee I got, she's just so tough to get along with, but she makes a good pot of coffee. So. And it's me, everybody. I do my own.
I was going
to say. We were out shopping. This was around Christmas time, and we went into a new store. It's some kind of a home store. That's what they have, is everything for your home, bedding and pillows and kitchen and just all kinds of stuff. And I hadn't been in there before. I was really kind of sad because that's where Barnes & Noble's was, and it closed to put this home store in. I was kind of sad about that. Anyway, we went in there, and they had this little plaque, and my husband picked it up, and he says, "You need this." And it says, "I am the boss." So I've got that sitting on my desk just to remind me when I start whining, I'm the boss. I got to quit whining.
Well, people that are holding paper, they're whining a little bit this morning.
Oh, my.
And, yes. The markets were down substantially yesterday. This morning they're down 300 points on the Dow. The Nasdaq is down not quite 1%. The S&P and the Nasdaq are pretty much the same, down almost 0.87%. So far, and the Dow is down 1.25%. So, we'll see how it plays out through the day, but our down markets carried through to the Asian markets. Both Japan, Hong Kong, Germany, they were all down. Japan and Germany were down a little over 2%. Japan, the biggest, 2.5%. And, of course, they're all blaming it on the tariffs that Trump wants to place. Now, what's interesting about this whole deal is you have the markets, dropping 700 points, and, the details aren't even
right.
finished.
They're not even out there.
They're not even out there. We don't even know what they're going to do.
Well, that tells us how emotionally
going to
driven.
get done.
Yeah, that tells you how emotionally driven we are. It's all on emotion.
Emotionally driven, but it's just on what people say. Yeah. It's the importance, and that tells you that there's no fundamentals underneath what's moving these markets. Now, everybody is pointing to China, and everyone is concerned about China's response, that they're going to create this trade war. But China, if you just focus on the metal, China really, don't know. It could only be 5% of their exports to the United States in metal, which isn't a whole lot. But they could retaliate some way by putting pressures on soybeans, some other products that we have. They could also put the squeeze on some American companies that do business in its markets, like Apple and Intel, and that's okay. Maybe that would chase them out of China and come over here. Or they can just kind of avoid any type of trade war, considering this is kind of a small area of what China does as far as exporting to the United States. So we'll just have to wait and see. China sold roughly $4 billion of steel and aluminum to the U.S. last year. Again, as I mentioned, that's just a small portion of what the country's wider exports are. There's all this discussion that that this would be the biggest, the direct commercial pain would be for China, but it's, again, not particularly that large. You're looking more towards Canada, Mexico, a lot smaller countries that ship us their steel and so forth, and it would certainly hurt them more. So I don't know if the announcements of these tariffs, we know they're trying to renegotiate the NAFTA agreements. It seems like those are kind of falling apart. If we get a lot of steel from Canada and Mexico, maybe this was some way in order to put pressure on those discussions for the NAFTA agreement and so forth.
Maybe it would bring them to the table. Those who have been ignoring renegotiating, maybe it would bring them to the table. My husband's in construction, and he said, an awful lot of the steel they get says made in Canada. It's they don't get a lot of made in the USA, and he said, it's going to make prices go up when they start bidding on these jobs, and he says, who's going to pay for that tariff? So it'll, it's like taxes. It's going to trickle down, so or trickle up or trickle over or wherever.
Now, if we put tariffs on China's electronics that come, now that's a big deal. Now that is a big deal.
Yeah,
but metal itself,
huge.
Huge. The countries that it would hurt the most would be like South Korea, Mexico, Canada, Japan, Germany, Taiwan, Brazil. And these are our allies also. So you're hurting those that So again, it's anything that we address. And I agree with tariffs. It's not that I don't agree with tariffs. I just think we're a day late and a dollar short.
Yeah, and it is, putting a Band-Aid on it where you need a tourniquet sometimes. It's something that should have been done a long time ago. And now to do it all at once, it's going to hurt.
Yes. So. We have a caller. We have Tom in Michigan calling us. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Tom?
I wanted to talk about this tariffs.
Do we have Tom?
Are tax. They're supposed to be revenue producing.
I guess we don't have Tom.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Federal government's power.
There it is. Hey, Tom, can you start over because we couldn't hear you?
Yes, on the tariffs, they're a tax, and taxes are supposed to be revenue producing, not to punish other nations. And I was watching the Business Report last night and listening to other talk hosts arguing about, they're arguing about protectionism and which businesses are going to benefit and which businesses are going to be hurt. And it seems to me that if we can predict where a comet's going to be 2 years from now and land a spacecraft on it, we could predict what is the optimum level of a tariff for raising revenue and stay within the confines of the language of the Constitution that a tax is a tax. It has one purpose, to raise revenue for the government. Mm-hmm. On a basic level, if the tariff's too high, the other country is not going to import the goods, and so the government is not going to make as much revenue from that tariff because there's going to be nothing to put the tax on. If it's too low, then of course the market would become flooded, but also the government isn't going to make the revenue because the tariff's too low. But they're not going to do that. They're just going to pull out of the thin air. Oh, well, I guess we'll use 25% and whack these guys over the head with it. Instead of using some kind of high-tech weapon, they're going out with a club, and just clubbing, like the giant, with a shotgun chasing down a mouse inside the house, as long as he's got enough shotgun shells, he's going to get it sooner or later. But that's just my opinion on tariffs. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what we're stuck with. Maybe the government just is not competent. Maybe there's just too much corruption. It's just the natural state of man for us ever to stay within the outlined taxing structure of the Constitution. Where now they get their revenue from the individual income tax, which is easy. They can just always ask for more until there isn't any more, then people can't pay. And, I hear a laundry list of commercials for these programs now where they claim that, we can get you less than you owe and things of that nature. But,
yeah.
That individual income tax was never intended to be on the backs of the people in the first place. And, they wrote the apportionment in there for a reason. It was basically they didn't. The federal government, personally, I don't think they were ever supposed to have jurisdiction over the people. That was the states.
No,
the federal government had jurisdiction, over the states within the confines of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. That's why we
control
have the
Ninth
Amendment.
The one thing they don't want to do, they were to control the borders.
Now, of course, we see that. The markets are going crazy because of this tariff, and they're talking trade war and everything else. And I wish they would. I have a book in front of me. It's called Price Theory, Introduction to Price Theory. It's an undergraduate course in determining prices for goods. It takes into everything into. It's full of math and graphs and charts and. It's a little bit too much math for me. But,
and we're going into
there's people out there that know this stuff. The person who taught the course, for instance.
We're headed into a break. We're going to have to let you go, Tom. We're headed into a break. It is Open Mic Friday. 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. And Melody and Beth Ann will be right back.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually, there is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a reestablished Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
And we have returned to listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning. If you haven't called in a long time, or I don't know what to say. Anyway, it is Open Mic Friday, 717-300. I know I am. 717-300-1218. Melody's making fun of me because I said you don't want to upset the princess, and she's making fun of me. 717-300-1218. We're going to go to Joe in Arkansas. Joe, how are you today?
Oh, I'm getting by so far, and how are you?
Doing okay. Sun is shining here in Missouri today, so looking good.
Yes, it's starting to look springy. Well, I wanted to comment on these tariffs, which is a big story in the news just at the moment. And, of course, we're hearing all kinds of scare stuff against them from the big media, who always tell us that what's good for us is bad for us and what's bad for us is good for us. They turn everything upside down. And so now they're trying to scare us that these tariffs are going to be absolutely disastrous. And so Patrick Henry said, I know of no way to predict the future except by the past. And the economy has been globalized since at least the 1600s. This globalist economy is nothing new whatsoever. We've been all through all this many, many, many times before. And so the best way to figure out what these tariffs are going to do is look at the history of the past and see what happened. Okay. And so one very good book about the history of all this is there's an economist named Ian Fletcher who's extremely good and very patriotic. He wrote a book called Free Trade Doesn't Work, What Should Replace It and Why? And he told the story of how during the War of 1812, England was alarmed at how America was fast becoming a manufacturing power that could possibly rival England. And so what they did was they started flooding the American market with cheap English goods so as to take the market away from American producers. And they wanted to prevent America from ever developing into a strong manufacturing and industrialized economy. And so what Congress did was they put a tariff on the English stuff. I think it was around 35%, something like that. And because of that, we became a great manufacturing industrialized country. All through the 19th century and early 20th century, we had tariffs generally generally going around 30 to 45%, somewhere in that vicinity. And now they're saying that a 25% or a 10% tariff is a huge, steep tariff. And it was precisely during that time when we did have those high tariffs on imported stuff that America developed into the greatest industrial and manufacturing economy in the world, far surpassing anybody else, with the most highest paid jobs. And Americans, had the highest standard of living. They prospered more than anybody else in the world. And although prices were somewhat higher here than other places, Americans made so much more money that they could easily afford to pay those prices. Cheap prices do not produce a wealthy, prosperous society. Like we've always known that Mexico and India and places like that, the prices are much cheaper. But the people are so poor that they cannot afford to buy stuff, even though it is a lot cheaper than it is here. And that was especially true in the 1950s, with the economy becoming more level globally. That is changing somewhat now. But again, another good example from history is that they were building the Transcontinental Railroad when Abraham Lincoln was president, and the question came up, should we buy the rails from England, which already had a highly developed steel industry, or should we make them here and buy them from ourselves? And the economists all advised Lincoln, no, buy them from England. We can get a better deal. We can get them cheaper from England. And so Abraham Lincoln, who was a strong protectionist, said, well, I don't know a lot about economics, but here's what I do know. If we buy the rails from England, they'll have our money and we'll have the rails. If we buy the rails from ourselves, we'll have both the rails and the money. So Lincoln decided to buy those rails from American steel producers, and in the process of doing that, he helped build up a wonderful American steel industry. And because so many people in America were working in that steel industry, America was able to become very innovative, very creative, and develop better methods of steel production. And all those people employed in the steel industry, making good wages, they were able to buy from a lot of other of their fellow Americans. So that stimulated the growth of a lot of other businesses, which sold things to the people working in the steel industry. So again, there was nothing to be feared from the tariffs, even though they made the steel, cheaper than it could be imported from England. Still, they kept the money in the country and kept the money circulating in the country and kept so much more money circulating in the country and made wages so much higher that Americans could easily afford the higher prices. So again, prosperity does not come from cheap prices. Prosperity comes from, number one, production of a lot of stuff, so there's a lot of real wealth around to buy, and number two, the people producing the wealth getting paid enough so they can buy from other people that are also producing wealth.
And they can even afford to buy their own product. That was what Henry Ford did, and yeah.
Well, in theory, yeah, I agree with you. History has proven time and time again, and of course, we always say if you want to predict the future, just look to the past. And everybody talks about, we'll pay a little bit more, cheap prices isn't, so forth and whatnot. But, during those times, there was also money that was backed by gold. And the reason we had the cheap prices and we had to go to the cheap prices was because we were exporting our inflation so we could keep our consumerism going here in the United States, so people would keep buying and so forth, because they wouldn't have been able to, their dollars wouldn't have been able to purchase the things that the prices would have been attached to them because of the number of, because we have no longer a money backed by gold. So, things are... Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's a big world out there, and everybody's got something to sell, and pretty much everything that can be made, somebody can make it cheaper than we can. So if we're not going to have tariffs, if we're going to have our markets completely wide open, pretty much everything there is, somebody's going to be able to sell it in our markets cheaper than we can. And even if we have gold and silver money, which I think is a good idea, but even if we do have gold and silver money, if our markets are flooded with cheaper stuff from other countries, then all our gold and silver is going to drain out of the country, and we're going to have a depressed economy here, even though we do have gold and silver money. We just won't have hardly any gold and silver in the economy because it'll all have gone to other countries to buy stuff from them.
It's kind of like what it is right now. We paid all of our debt. We have a lot of gold floating around the world, except here in the States. But I mean, I get it. And again, we're talking about tariffs, and we do need to protect. These agreements do have to be rewritten. I agree with all of that. I'm not arguing with you, Joe. But I do believe times are different. And look what happened to England afterwards. Their trade and look at the rest of the world in today. And I'm just trying to do a different picture. I'm not arguing with you. I'm looking at the world as you have all these countries that are in debt. You have all these countries that need every dollar that they can get, and they're going to fight and try to hold on to what they can. And so even if the good things is to begin to put America first, we're not getting out of this on a free card. There will be adjustments, and are people willing to accept these adjustments in order to perhaps have a better country 20 years from today? Because it's not going to happen immediately. So are people willing to sacrifice? Yeah. Are people willing to sacrifice today? And I don't think they are.
History shows it's not going to be a sacrifice.
Pardon?
We're going to have more jobs, better paid jobs, more money circulating in the country, and it's not going to be a sacrifice. It's going to help us get on the road to recovery, to the way we were before NAFTA and GATT were passed, when all the jobs and the money started draining out of the country. And as far as the debt goes, it can't help but help us. I suppose we won't be able to completely pay back the debt or anything like that. But if we have more industry, more jobs, better paid jobs, more money circulating in this country, that's going to help us, with getting so that we don't have to, rely so much on debt to keep the economy running. And another thing, I heard that the White House said something like they were doing this because in case of shortages, if we had a major war, we did want to be short on steel and aluminum. Yeah. And so what could they possibly be talking about? There's only two countries that we could possibly have a major war with, I think, and that's Russia and China. And of the two, I think the much more likely is China, because China clearly has intentions to dominate the world. They say that their biggest enemy is the United States. The United States intends to have a war. No, China intends to make war on the United States as soon as they feel strong enough to beat us. And, of course, we could stop the Chinese threat completely if we would just stop buying just about everything we buy from China. Then they would be so much weakened by that they couldn't be a threat to us anymore, like they weren't in the 1950s and 1960s and so on like that, when they weren't so highly developed. But I suppose we're going to keep on buying all our electronics and most of our other stuff from China, so that they're going to keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger, so that there is a strong possibility of a major war with them. But I expect that's what they're preparing for by this major war talk. And another thing is, how much actually will these tariffs raise the prices? They're talking about 10% on aluminum. So that means that the aluminum would go up to about 10% in price, I would think. And when you have something manufactured of aluminum, the cost of the aluminum is just a small price of it. Most of the price of the thing is the labor that goes into producing it. So yeah, I could see it would raise the price a little bit, but not that much. And the same with the steel. They're talking about 25% on steel. So I suppose the cost of the steel will go up about 25%. And again, anything manufactured of steel, the cost of the steel is just a small part of it. Most of the cost is the labor and the distribution and the retail and market and all this other kind of stuff. So the prices would have to go up somewhat for the extra cost of the steel, but not very much, right. I would think.
Well, it depends on who's buying it. If you're not buying it, then it's not that much. But if you're buying it and using it in your business and everything, it could mean a lot. Depends if you're spending $100 or billions of dollars. Yeah, it could mean a lot.
When you're bidding on jobs and you have to put the steel in that, and as well as the labor. I mean, you have to bid on the entire job. You know, it will make the cost of the job. You know, the building, whatever you're building, it'll make it higher. And I'm not against it. I'm for tariffs. I'm like Melody. I'm for it. We're just, we're all talking, but nothing has really happened yet. It's all on the table yet. It's just verbalizing right now, but we'll just see where it's going to go. Joe, you're right. We got to watch the history. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, thank you very much.
And of course, he was talking about Russia and China, and of course, Putin came out and says, "I have a perfect bomb nobody can stop," and so he's got he's got the perfect nuclear weapon. And
again, he also you know what, we can't much we say Russia this, Russia that, we can't ignore the fact.
Oh, absolutely not.
I mean, we can't ignore the fact. And what's interesting too, that came out and was released yesterday as we're sending more items into Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that people just see the headlines and they do this and do that, and they don't understand, why and how things are going. Syria's blowing up. Do you hear anyone talking about Syria? Anyone? Nope.
Not on the media, no.
No. And there's a lot of issues. So the things in Ukraine are beginning to heat up again as we're sending not troops but more equipment over there. So do you think it's a coincidence that Russia comes out yesterday and makes those statements? Probably not. Probably not as a coincidence, but so there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes, and you can grab the headlines and run with that, and but there's so much more to it. And it was just like these, I was reading an article earlier today about because I said yesterday also that perhaps there was issues with we need the steel if we go to war and so forth and whatnot. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what? It's going to be a cyber war. It's the hacking. This is where our weaknesses are at, not so much the steel and so forth. I mean, so there's different ways that you can look at everything. And but until it's actually done, it's all. It's all.
We looked when you talk about the cyber hacking, but what about all the DC occupiers that taken money from these foreign countries? We found out where, his fine was only $14,000+ was the fine for Bernie Sanders because he took money from the Australian Labor Union for his campaign. Well, nobody's talking about Australia interfering in our elections, but isn't that the same thing as the Russians, buying stuff and putting ads out on Facebook and prompting rallies for and against whatever the case may be for the campaign, for the candidates? I mean, this is just absurd, and you got to blame the DC occupiers. You got to blame them on everything. They're the ones that have done these crazy trade deals. And I said a long time ago, that's why they hated Donald Trump, because he was talking about fixing trade and immigration, and they go hand in hand and line their pockets.
Well, it really wasn't just the Democrats and these crazy trade agreements. I mean, the NAFTA was actually NAFTA actually was started by Bush. And Clinton happened to sign it, But
I said right. Congress. Right. They're the ones that are getting rich. Yeah. We have Sherry from Kansas. Sherry, how are you today?
Okay. Good morning, girls.
Good morning.
When it really comes down to it, the stock market generally only impacts the middle class and lower people negatively. Whenever it goes up, it does not really help most of us. And, it's not doing what it was originally set out to do, to help people get money, investment money to start businesses. That's not what's happening anymore. What's happening is that people are playing it to to make money and all this, what do they call it, this trading where they...
inside trading?
High-frequency trading or something.
Algorithms, yeah.
Okay.
And I think they should really put a tax on transactions. It could be, a part of a percentage, but it would stop this volatility because, it's not really doing what it's supposed to be doing. And they want to know where to get money. Those are the people that are hurting us. And it's really stupid to, I agree with Joe in that, industries like steel, like semiconductors, like all this electronic stuff, those are vital industries. We should not be, letting those just almost completely die here in the United States.
Well, Sherry, the stock market was actually created for the wealthy. It was a game for them.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't meant for people who had little things and to prepare for retirement and so forth. It was created for the wealthy. They opened the doors for people so they could continue to get wealthier and so forth. And now they use it as like psychological warfare, because if the Dow is up, then everybody's happy and everybody thinks that they're making all types of money. But the people who truly are going to lose are going to be those who have retirement accounts, pension plans. They're the ones that are going to be devastated. And when those numbers are higher, because you're looking at trillions and 20-plus trillions of dollars that are sitting there in these retirement accounts, pension plans, they have to keep those numbers up. And just as I said yesterday, I did an interview with James Corbett, and we were talking about China and their debt. And you can hear that, I think I mentioned this on yesterday's program, but the difference between their debt and our debt, all their debt went into infrastructure building. Our debt went into Wall Street for the multinational corporations and D.C. They're the ones who are getting wealthier and more powerful through the Wall Street. We're paying people who invest in the stock markets is basically their bank. We've paid for our own destruction, and they continue to use the American people and any of the money that they earn to continue to destroy this country. So Wall Street, we're, investments, it's their bank, and They exported our inflation to China so we can import all these cheap trinkets that we all buy. We've allowed China to become wealthier and more mighty through their military. And it's just like to think that we can actually go back with tariffs might be a start.
Well, tariffs is a start, but also look how they manipulated the LIBOR rate, and nobody got their hands slapped because of that, and that has affected all these pensions and bonds and everything too, and nobody got any,
Nobody goes to jail. They get a couple of fines. As far as I'm concerned, well, bonds. Look at your treasuries and your bonds in the LIBOR rate. Every contract that was signed should have been voided, should have been null and void, because they were based on fraud. It was based on fraud.
Well, and everybody penalized anybody who had any money saved because they did not get any kind of decent interest rate.
Little Timmy Geithner, he knew LIBOR was being rigged. And what did our own government do? Nothing, because they can't. When you're in debt, there's very little that you can do. And the more debt...
I still think there should be a transaction tax, and it would stop a lot of this volatility, because they got this trading, I can't remember what it's called, but it's where they grab transactions and manipulate the price of the stock before, like if a pension fund or something is buying a stock, but these these people that
the only
have
way it's going to stop the volatility is if they allow it to have it marked to its real value, and eventually it will. So appreciate the call, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend.
You too.
We have Oscar on the line. Oscar, how are you today?
Good morning, ladies. How are you all?
Good morning.
Doing good, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for taking my call. There's a couple of things that I want to touch. First and foremost, about a couple of remarks that you both made a few days ago. You, Beth, said that in a sort of an inquisitive statement about who is running the show, and you mentioned CFR, you mentioned the Trilateral Commission, you mentioned a bunch of entities, but you forgot to mention the main one, which is the United Nations. We are under the jurisdiction of the United Nations, and they're the ones that are running the show, absolutely. Now, Melody made a remark the other day, too, and she corrected herself, but I dare to say not to correct yourself, Melody, because what you said is totally true, coming out of the horse's mouth about Michelle or Michael. The ex-president, very Socorro alias Barack Obama, said it himself in one of his talking things. He said, well, Michael, I told Michael, and Michael up and down. So, you know, that is eating bread, so to speak. Okay. With that being said, now I want to touch a couple of things, as far as what Joe said. Joe said a few things that are true, very true. There's a lot of truth in what he said as far as, back in the 50s, talking post-war, when, this country flourished tremendously, became an industrial giant, and everybody in this country had the best life standard and everything. That is very true. And that's why that thing it was terminated, because in those days the New World Order boys were spanning the web in order for all of us to fall in it. It was like an invitation to the spider web, so that we can be even. And that's what's happening right now. And a lot of people, talking this and this and that. We should do this. We should do that. It's like a dog turning around and shaking his tail. That it will never happen, because everybody don't seem to realize that we are under the jurisdiction of the New World Order. We are in it. Yeah. Everybody, America, come on. You got to face it. That's not going to be any escape for no one, neither one of us. Now, as far as the stock market is a casino. It's a computer game for the globalists and the corporations that run this country.
Yep. So they can steal the people's money. Yep. Thank you, Oscar. You're absolutely correct.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Thank you. And we have returned. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann. In the morning, we have to confess, we lost Beth at the last of the other segment because I had to clear my throat.
There's no need to share that.
I have to confess. Confession is good for the soul. So I accidentally disconnected myself when I tried to cough and mute the button, and I messed us all up. But anyway, I'm here. I'm back.
I do want to appreciate Oscar's call because he is absolutely right on, and we can talk about the things that could be done, might be done, and the positives, and we can always reach for the pie in the sky. But on the other hand, it is a global order, and those in Washington are puppets. We are in it. And it is part of it. And I don't believe there's a way of going back. If we're going forward, and I still do believe, and nothing's going to change my mind. I mean, I can try and be hopeful at times, and, my way to, bring hope to people is to help them save what they work so hard to, what they work so hard to save. Their savings is, they can protect that. But we are in this globalist order. And it's just not China. I mean, you're looking at, what do you think is going to happen? We look at our allies that we talked about that send us more metal than China does. And now they're going to be penalized. And what are they going to do? Instead of, calling them and saying, well, let's get together and maybe we can, rearrange things, make negotiations and so forth, but we're still in this global order. We can, try to go forward and protect ourselves in this global order, but is that really going to work? This is going to play out. And I've always believed that we won't be able to make the great changes to where they actually have impacts until it actually collapses. We're going to have to bring it up from the dust, because I agree with Oscar. I think we're just too far down the road to make any big changes to where it would actually have any major impacts. Sure, you're going to see some jobs come back and, people will benefit, and I'm happy for that. But for long-term solutions to where we get out of our debt, to where our children will be able to, no. It's just not going to happen.
And one of the reasons are because we have no backing. It's not like it was back in the history when we had the gold backing the currencies. We have nothing right now. Gold and silver is not the backing, and it's...
This debt has to be eliminated. And again, all of our money went into Wall Street. Instead of infrastructure. We allowed this country to crumble for the sake of Wall Street. So every stock that you own, basically you're supporting the destruction of this country. And it is a casino. You're not going to win. your statements might look good. And, of course, they always make sure there's a few people that get a payoff, or they wouldn't be able to keep the Ponzi scheme going. That's how you keep the Ponzi scheme going. So, again, I don't ever want to seem so dire and negative and so forth, but the picture is so much bigger. And then you go to the spiritual level of everything. And so how can we change things around in this country if we can't change it around spiritually? So
that's exactly right.
So, no, yeah, we can get caught up and get all pumped up and thinking that someone is finally standing up for the people. But I'm not sure what's lip service anymore.
It's hard to distinguish it. It's hard to sort it out.
Because, I believe it's all lip service. But then again, I get nasty letters and comments and so forth, and that hurts.
Well, it's it is difficult to stay positive. It's difficult not to question, and I think we should question everything. I don't think you're wrong in that. I think we do need to question everything that they do in D.C., and as Oscar was reminding us, the puppets that are pulling the strings, the CFR, the Federal Reserve, and the Illuminati, and all these, it's we need to question, because there's a whole different force out there that are running the show. It used to be a running joke with Derry Brownfield when I worked for him, and one of the producers that was covering when a producer was gone, and Derry was kind of being bossy and making motions to him as to do this, to do that, and he finally clicks on the button. I hope Todd's not listening. And he says, "Who's running this show?" Well, who is running this show? And it's not the ones we think. And but they're in on it. The DC occupiers are in on it. They're getting rich.
Why do you think these politicians run on hope and change?
Because they know we need it.
Because with hope and change, if you don't see reality.
Oh, my.
That's what creates illusions. It's part of the equation. It's part of the propaganda.
Good point.
You promise hope and change, and people get sucked into it.
Well, you know what Uncle Joe said? He said, it's not the hope and change we were hoping for.
Well, no, it's propaganda.
It is.
And that's how people get confused.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, I don't I'm the most positive person that I know of. But, I also see reality. And few people do. And few people see reality. You can still look at possible things that could happen, that could make things better.
Well, being
and
a
maybe
realist,
it's on the right leg.
Being a realist isn't negative. It's looking at the big picture and trying to figure out what scenario is going to work. And, right now we're to a point where you and I both believe that before anything can really change to fix it, I got the little quotations in the air here, fix it, our economy, our mess, there's going to have to be some kind of a catastrophic event, a tragedy or something. We don't know what that is. It could be lots of things. We talk about the economy collapsing. It could be war. It could be something else altogether different that's going to force the hand to make a change. And,
we can look at all these theories in the past, and we do have to look to history. But a lot of those theories that made America great was based at a beginning. And that makes complete difference. We have to get back to that level, which is a far cry from where we are today.
Oh, yeah.
And you're right. Our standard of living, that was the whole game. That's the whole game, lower our standards. And we can still, the citizens have a lot of power, but they're not moving. Citizens aren't going to move until something nasty, until they're hungry. and the people in this country are not yet hungry. But it's
getting close because we have an awful lot of people that are.
I don't know if it's days, months, weeks, years. But when the people are hungry, and I guess hunger can just be something other than food. Maybe they're hungry for something else, and when they don't get it, we think of hunger as, when our bellies hurt because we haven't eaten for days. But there's hungry. You can have hunger in other ways. So again, folks, you're going to have to take care of yourself. Certainly can't depend on government. They want you to.
It always comes home. It always comes home.
So, I don't want to be preaching. I'm not a preacher. I'm just trying to wake you up. And yes, I do help people. I couldn't be doing this if I didn't believe in it. And so, again, I hope, through this program, our financial survival program, Beth's program, Pastor Butch's program, other programs that are out there in radio land and TV land that are good, that can help people understand what's going on. I hope I can help you preserve your wealth. So you need to give us a call at 1-800-375-4188. That's 1-800-375-4188.
And we have finished up another show and another week, started another month. Today is the 2nd of March. Melody, you have a great, wonderful weekend, and I hope our listeners do too. And we will be back here on Monday morning.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.